Hey friends, this is Matt Duss of the Center for International Policy, just sharing some takeaways from last night's State of the Union address by President Biden. On foreign policy, the State of the Union address really didn't give us too much to work with. He came right out of the gate pretty strong talking about Ukraine. I can't remember the last time a president opened the State of the Union talking about foreign policy, but it really served to underline the urgency of the need to pass the Ukraine aid package that's been stalled in Congress for months now. The section on the Gaza war was unfortunately as expected. Yesterday's announcement of the building of a Gaza port to facilitate humanitarian aid shouldn't be dismissed. Obviously, more aid to Palestinians who are on the brink of starvation is good. But as with the airdropping of aid, it just really reveals the incoherence of U.S. policy right now, in which we're trying to ease Palestinian suffering while continuing to unconditionally arm and support the government that is intentionally inflicting that suffering. The president seems to recognize that ultimately this conflict will require a political solution, but still unwilling to bring the full weight of America's considerable leverage to that goal. Biden's potted history of the conflict, I don't think, helped very much. Of course, Hamas's atrocities on October 7 were the precipitating event for this, but this war did not begin October 7. It has been waged against the Palestinians every day for years in the form of a violent and humiliating military occupation. And any effort to bring this conflict to a just resolution will need to confront that reality, and Biden, unfortunately, seems still unprepared to really do that. On the bright side, Biden took what I think is exactly the right tone on his administration's biggest foreign policy priority, which is China. He basically told everybody to chill out about it. He's got this. This isn't dismissing the challenge. He hasn't done that, but I think taking a less hysterical approach is something that will lead or could lead to a more rational discussion and ultimately better and more effective policy. On immigration, I think a key goal must be tackling root causes such as corruption and violence in U.S. Latin America policy. The president unfortunately allowed himself to be drawn into a back and forth with Georgia Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene over the murder of Laken Riley, a 22-year-old Georgia nursing student who was murdered by an undocumented migrant who had been released into the country after being detained. Biden's statement that Riley had been, quote, killed by an illegal was a misstep that plays right into the right's anti-immigrant rhetoric, which is unfortunately, I think, in keeping with Biden's general approach to immigration lately, where he's been willing to tack right and offer some pretty dangerous concessions to try and save the Ukraine aid package. But many of the principles and values at stake at our border are the same ones at stake in Ukraine: human safety and dignity, a commitment to international law. It's wrong to think we can promote one while selling out the other. But the bottom line here is that there just wasn't much foreign policy in last night's speech at all. A few paragraphs in a nearly 90-minute address, and I think that reflects this administration's approach. They would like to talk about foreign policy as little as possible. President Biden has a strong case to make in terms of his administration's domestic accomplishments. They've been able to get some very important things done that are showing real and important benefits to the American people. He has a similar opportunity to advance a foreign policy agenda that improves the lives of Americans and others around the world. Given that foreign policy is clearly going to be a much bigger issue in this election than I think anyone expected, last night was a missed opportunity to stake out a bolder vision. Thanks.